Good morning, good afternoon, good night, of course depending on your location. Welcome to another Xray webinar. So today is a product walkthrough webinar. Our previous webinar was specially reflected on the 3.0 version of Xray, but today we'll have more like an overview of the product. So as usual, my name is João Mendonça and I'm the Xpand IT business developer. With me I have Sergio Freire. Hi Sergio, once again, how are you?
Hi João.
Last week, not last 2 weeks ago, you were a bit sick. Now you're feeling better.
Yeah. I'm almost fine. But
let's hope that it's going to be good. So in today's webinar, we'll go over the main features of Xray. So one of the most known task management add-ons for Jira, and our main focus today will be in the overview of the tool, as I said. Before we actually dive into the tool, I want to more or less give you an overview of our team, so the Xpand Add-ons team. And for you to have an idea, we've been making software for more than 4 years. So we have currently 3 offices in 2 different countries. We are Portuguese, so 2 of the offices are here in Portugal. One thing that is very important for us is, of course, all our customers' feedback. In terms of customers, who, of course, at the moment, we have more than 3,000 customers using both of our tools in more than 65 countries. And as I was mentioning, the features that we get asked from our customers are something that is very important for us. All the feedback is really important because it helps us to build a better tool. And the 3.0 version of Xray was actually an example of that. So most of the features that were actually implemented in this latest version, I don't know if you're using this version or not, but I do recommend to check it out because we introduced a lot of new stuff. Sergio will mention at least a couple of them in today's overview. But this is something very important for us. And most of that new release were actually features that were asked by our customers that we listened and that we delivered. So, and regarding our product, so our team is not just about Xray. We have another add-on called Exporter. So for those who don't know Exporter is like an add-on that can give you the ability to extract information from Jira. So let's say that you want to get a report to a customer that doesn't have access to your Jira, or for example, upper management that doesn't have access and it doesn't wish to log into your Jira, you can just with Exporter create a template, put up some placeholders there that will then be consumed and kind of transform the information, get information from Jira. And with that template, you get all the information from your Jira instance into a document that you can then after set it out and get things done in this way, so that your customer will then be happy that you will be easily access to his information. We'll actually in the end we'll give you a use case of Exporter. You will see more deeply what's the point of this add-on. So as I mentioned, these are some of our customers. Some of you I know that are actually attending this webinar. So just for you to know what kind of customers actually we are working with. And before we actually dive into the agenda, I will pass it to Sergio. I just want to refer 2 things. So first one is that afterwards we are doing a QA session. So after this session, you can just get your questions with the GoToWebinar their question part there, question section. And we will, after the webinar, we'll reserve some kind of 5 minutes to go over the questions, 5 to 10 minutes to go over the questions, answer some of them. We will try to answer all of them, but if it's not possible in terms of time, we will answer some of them, and then afterwards you will get an email with the recording session of this webinar. So we'll get the recording of this webinar that you can share with the colleague or whomever that was not able to attend, and the PowerPoint, and also the questions of the answers to your questions. Okay, so no questions will be without an answer from this point of view. Okay, if we don't answer it in the webinar, we will do it afterwards for sure. Okay, so but then with this done, I will actually pass it to Sergio. There's a lot of ground to cover, and I think we have to move fast. So go on, Sergio.
Thank you, João. So hello everyone, and once again, first of all, thanks for attending our webinar. I really hope you enjoy it. The aim of this webinar is to give you an overview of the main features of Xray. We won't have the time, unfortunately, to explore all the features in detail, but at least you'll get an idea of what Xray allows you to do in terms of task management. The best way to learn all about Xray is by using it. So we do have a sandbox environment that you can use to try it out. Actually, we are actually upgrading it, so it has also the latest versions of Jira and also the latest version of the two add-ons. Or if you want, you can download the trial to your local Jira instance. Finally, just to say that, as João mentioned, we will reserve some amount of time in the end, so we are able to clarify at least some of your questions, and if that's not enough, we will contact you afterwards and try to answer all of you. So let's start, and I'll start by sharing with you our agenda for today. So let's see if I don't cough during the presentation.
Let's hope so.
And okay, so I'll start by introducing what are requirements in Xray. The naming requirements in Xray actually means testable entities, and we'll see what entities they can be. Then I will be creating different types of tests for a requirement that I'll be creating. I will be also introducing a precondition, which is like an abstraction of the initial conditions that you must assure before you start executing your test. And then I will introduce two different approaches for organizing your tests within a project. In fact, now with Xray 3, there are two ways they can be used complementarily. And the first one is by using test sets, which are like lists of test issues that you group in some logical way. And then we have like, I would say like the more traditional approach that is common in some tools, which is the hierarchical way of organizing tests in folders and subfolders. And for this, we made the test repository, which is a project level test organization. Then I will be moving into the planning part. And for that, we have a test plan issue. And from that test plan, I will be creating multiple test cycles. We call them test executions. I will be covering both manual and automated tests, at least in some part, because the automated testing, that is quite a broad area. And then I'll move into the different reporting possibilities that Xray provides you through the built-in reports and also the gadgets that we provide. And besides it, we also have integration with other add-ons such as Exporter, which is ours, and also we provide integration with the EasyBI if you need a BI-like kind of reporting where you define the dimensions and where you want to drill down on the test data. Okay, so let's move into the Jira administration, because I want to show you the kind of settings that Xray provides you. And well, the first thing that you can see here is that Xray in fact has plenty of settings, and these settings allow you to fine-tune the behavior of the tool. I will focus for now on the issue type mapping, because this is the place where you can see all the issue types that you have in Jira, and you can define the ones that you can make test coverage for. So if you wish to test like stories and habits and other custom issue types that you may have, such as requirements and sub-requirements, so these issue types that you see here, they don't come with Xray. So you as an administrator can create your own issue type. And if you define that issue type as being a requirement issue type, then it means that you can make test coverage for them. Likewise, you can define the so this works by dragging and dropping the issue types to this then as you can see, that I have. So I have a sample project that I'll be using, and for that project I'll be creating the two. I'll be creating first I will create three different types of tests that we have. Okay, so let me move into the scope of our project. Okay, so it's, the my calculated project, and here I'll be in fact creating a user story, and let's say that as a user I should be able to calculate the sum of two numbers. So this is a simple story, so it's a simple requirement if you want to name it in that way. So let's say that this is for version 3.0 of our calculated project. So let's look at the screen of our user story, and you can see that it's quite a bit enhanced from the traditional user story screen, because now we provide here some additional areas related with testing. And the first thing that you can see right away is the requirement status custom field. And this is quite handy because it provides you a glance of the current coverage status of your requirement. So by looking at it, you know right away that this requirement is uncovered for version 3.0. And this is true because in fact I have not yet created any test for it. So this field, this custom field, the behavior of this field, it can be configured in Xray. So you can decide for which version it will present the coverage status for this requirement. So typically I've this configured in a way that it shows you the requirement status for the next to be released version. So if I'm working in the 3.0, it will show me the coverage status, having in mind the execution that I made for the 3.0. Okay, and then you can see this test coverage panel, and within the test coverage panel you can see all the tests that do validate this user story. Okay, so I don't have any yet, but I will start by creating a test. So the first thing is, or the first question is, how can I create a test in order to validate my user story? Well, you can create a test from the top create button, since the testing for Xray is a issue type in Java. Or you can create it right from this test coverage panel. The only difference is that if you do it from here, your test case will be automatically linked to the user story. If you do it from the top create button, you have to link it by hand to the user story. We'll see how the linkage works between requirements and tests, because in fact we are using the issue link mechanism that Jira provides. Okay. So enough talk, let's create a manual test first. And before I go into the actual details of our manual test, I would like to introduce you to a particularity of our add-on. And you can see that the different phases of our testing process, they are in fact implemented as different issue types. And this is unique. So for the test case template, we have this test issue type. Then we have the precondition, which is an issue type that is like the initial conditions that your test must assure. And this is a reusable entity because you can link it with multiple tests if all those tests require the same precondition. Then we have the test set, which basically is a list of tests that you group in some logical way. So you can group your test in multiple test sets if you want to. And then you can use this listing if you need to create like a plan, or if you need to create a test execution, which is like a task for running a bunch of tests in some given version of the system. Don't worry, because I'll be going through each one of these entities. And what are these the benefits of using issue types? So as I've said, this is something unique to Xray, and this gives you the ability to, for example, if you need to add some additional custom fields, you can add any custom field to any of these different issue types. More than that, you can implement workflows on any of those. If you need to control, for example, the specification workflow, or if you need to have fine control over the execution, task, or if you need to have like also better control over the planning phase. And one thing that is really nice is that some customers, they want to segregate the testing related artifacts from the project where they have like the requirements or the user stories, so on. And with Xray, in fact, you can sort these entities, these issues, in the scope of the same project where you have your user stories or your epics or your tasks, or you can split them between one or more different projects. And that is quite nice because in some scenarios that may be quite useful because you clearly separate the testing related artifacts from the place where you are managing your requirement specification. Okay, so let me start then creating our manual test. So since a test is an issue, well, I have to fill here the summary. Of course, it would make sense to fill out here a description. I would also recommend to set the components and and put some labels, since these are like the traditional ways for you to mark issues in Jira, and then it makes it quite easier to find the test afterwards, because you can easily find the issues based on the components or in some label. Going to the test details, you can see that a test can be either manual, cucumber, or generic. So first of all, I'll be creating a cucumber manual test, and well, I can fill out the steps right from here, but actually I'm going to leave this to the test screen, where in fact I can do a lot more from there. Then I can associate our test entity with some other entities. I'll skip this for now. But because I want to focus on how the association between our test and the user story is done. So as I mentioned, we reuse the Jira ways of working, and if you want to relate issues in Jira, you have issue links. And in fact, we have a special issue link, which is the test that tells you that a given test tests some user story or some requirement in general. In fact, the test may validate one or more user stories, and given a user story may be validated by one or more tests if you want. So let me create this, and let's go into the actual screen of our test case. So once again, think of the test as a test case template. So it's a reusable entity that you can reuse across different executions, different plans. In fact, the test has nothing to do with the execution related aspect. It's just a specification. It's like a template. Okay, so I can fill here out the steps, and for that I can even use a visual editor, so I don't need to know the wiki markup by hand. I can also import steps from another test, from a CSV file, or even from the report, and this is quite nice, and it will be quite handy for my use case because it makes my work faster. So imagine that I have this Excel sheet with with the 3 columns already filled out with like the action and the expected result, and I can just copy and then paste it here, and it will automatically create the steps for me. Okay. So the steps are ordered. You can easily change the order by dragging them around. You can move them to a given position. You can clone, move them. So that kind of things are quite normal. You can also add attachments at step level. So let me add here some attachment here. And since this is a test issue, since a test is in fact the issue in Jira, you can also add global attachment. So you have to add attachments globally. Then scroll a bit down. Well, you can see all the related entities with our test with our test case. So you can see all the preconditions that this test is related with, all the test sets where this test is included. So imagine that is going to exercise calculator is
we'll try one thing very Can you hear us? So let's go. Let's try to for this. We are having problems with the connection. It happens.
okay, just to confirm that that is now okay. So let's see if it's now okay. Can before I proceed, can you guys just tell me if the audio is now good?
Okay, I think we will try to once again put the video on.
Okay.
Let's one second just.
Okay.
Yes, it should be on now, the video. I think we are good to go.
Okay.
Sorry about this, guys.
Okay, so I was detailing the precondition. In fact, sometimes you may need to have the same or to assure the same exact initial steps before you actually start executing a bunch of test cases. So instead of having to write that down in all the different test cases as the initial step, you can abstract that in a precondition that you can then reuse and link to multiple test cases. So what I'll be doing here is I will be creating a precondition, and since I'm doing it from the test issue, it will be automatically linked to it. So a precondition, let's say that the calculator must be turned on. And then in the precondition details, you can see in fact that a precondition can also be either mel, can be cucumber, or it can be generic. So if I want to link a given test case to a given precondition, they have to be of the same type. And then in the conditions section is actually the place where I can fill out the conditions. So let's say turn on the calculator. Okay. In fact, a test may require 0, 1, or more preconditions, and you can define the order of them within this section. And if you go into the precondition issue screen, you can see all the tests that are using it. Okay. So coming back to our manual test case, I just want to scroll a bit down because I want to show you that there's here a test runs panel. And in fact, the test runs is the only thing that is not issue type in Jira. For performance reasons, it's an internal entity. So at each time that that you schedule a test for execution in the scope of a given test execution, we create a test run that contains a copy of the specification of the test case at that moment whenever you schedule it. So if you want, you can execute right away. I will call this an ad hoc execution right from the test issue screen. And then below, you can see how the linkage between our test case and the user story is done. So there's the issue link test that links to our user story. So if now I come to the user story, you can see right away that the recurrent status now has changed from being uncovered to not run, because in fact, if I move the mouse over it, you can see that I have one test covering it. And actually, you can see the test here in the test coverage panel, and you can also track the latest result of this test for some version. Okay, what does this mean? In fact, you can analyze the test results of your tests, having in mind the executions that you made for some version on a given environment. And I'll speak a bit about the environments later on whenever I schedule the test for execution. So moving ahead, let's create the other type of test that we support, which is the generic test. Okay, and the generic test basically is something that can be used for different purposes, and sometimes it can be used as a mean to report results of some automated framework that you have that is not Cucumber. For example, JUnit, NUnit, Rabbit framework. In fact, whenever we import those results, we'll be creating different test issues that are of the type generic. So imagine, guys, that you have some automated results and you need to have visibility of those results on your requirement issues. So you need a way to report those results too. So you need, in the end, you need to have test issues, and these generic issues can be used for that purpose. They can also be used as a means to report results of some exploratory session. I would call this a basic support for exploratory testing. So in the case whenever you report results from, for example, JUnit or Rabbit or any unit, in fact, we will be automatically creating the test issues from you, and we use this generic test definition field as a unique identifier to put here like the class name and the class method that actually implements the automated test. Then there's one type of test missing, which is the Cucumber automated test. And this is also something unique whenever we compare Xray with other tools, is that we cover also, we cover not only manual tests, but we also support BDD with Cucumber. So you can manage the Cucumber specification here in Jira. So you can create a test and say that it's Cucumber, that it can be, okay, it can be either a scenario or a scenario outline. So Cucumber is quite famous for supporting BDD because you can write your test scenarios in natural language, which you can then export out of the Jira and run it in your CI environment with the actual code that implements each one of these sentences. And then you can submit the results back to Jira, so you can have visibility of these automated test results also at the user story level. Okay, so I have now covered both the test issues and also the precondition. I will now move into the organization aspect. And here is the, I would say, is one thing that we added a few times is the ability to organize tests in a flat hierarchy way by supporting folders. And before that, we supported the notion of test sets, which are like issues, lists of tests that you group in some logical way. So I'll be creating first a test set just to show you how it is. and what you can use it for. So in order to create a test set, I can create it by using the create button. Then I can pick the test set issue type here. Let's say it's, let's group all my arithmetic related tests within this test set. Then you can add the tests that you want to be part of this test set. So I'll add the 3 test cases that I've created. And if I open now the test set, you can see basically it's a ordered list of test cases. So test sets they are quite close to the Jira concept because it's a issue. So in fact, you are organizing tests in this list. You can use it as a means to group all the tests related with some component or with some relevant business case. And you can also use it for another thing. So in fact, you can use it as a dynamic way to cover requirements, because you can link a test set to a requirement, and that will mean that you can just add tests to the test set, and they will be reflected on the cover status of the requirement. And this is the flat approach. And I will now speak a bit about the hierarchy way which some users might prefer to use instead. And for that we have the test repository concept, which is a project level organization. So you can organize the tests in one or multiple subfolders. You can easily drag them around, change their rank. You can create additional folders. You can see the direct child tests and all the tests that are within all the subfolders of a given parent folder. You can see also here in these 2 meta folders that provides you a glance of all the test cases that belong to this project. And you can also track the test cases that are not yet organized within the test repository itself. So you can see that our 3 test cases, they are currently living in the orphans folder. So I'll just multi-select them and add them to this arithmetic rate test. So what can you use these folders for? So you can use it as a means to create additional entities or to add tests to some other entities that Xray provides. What I'm going to do, because I can just easily pick here a folder, and I can create a plan containing all the test cases that are within this folder. What is a test plan then? So I'm moving from the organization aspect now to the planning and then to the execution. A test plan basically is a way for you to keep track of a group of tests in some version of the system, and it will present you the consolidated results of multiple iterations that you make for those tests. So you can create a test plan for a given version or even for a given sprint, and the test plan will present you the latest results for all the tests that are being tracked within the test plan. So if you make multiple test executions, the test plan will show you the consolidated values for that. So let's create a test plan from this selected folder. And whenever I do this, I can in fact replicate this structure, this organization to the destination test plan. We will speak a bit about it in a few seconds. So let's say yes, that I want to replicate it. And here, when in the issue screen of the creation of the test plan, okay, let's say that this is, I want to track all my relevant tests for version 3. Here what is important is that I define that, okay, this is for version 3.0, because whenever you are creating the different test cycles, the different test executions from the test plan, they will automatically inherit the fixed version from the test plan. Then since this is a test plan, you can fill out some informative dates for the begin and the end date of your plan. And let's create it. And now let's open it just to see how it looks like. So the test plan, here it is. It's aimed for version 3, so it's tracking 6 tests in this version. And then you can see for each one of the tests that are part of this test plan, you can see their latest status. So if you do multiple iterations, in this column you want to see the latest value of the test result, having in mind the latest result that you have for that specific test case. Then, okay, I can go into the test plan board, and here, in fact, you're going to see that you have here a bunch of test cases that you can also group in different folders. So this allows you to do what? Basically, it allows you to track the results on a per folder basis. So if you need to, at the planning and or the execution phase, if you need to change the way, to change the ranking of the test, so you imagine that you want to execute it by a different order, you can do it. So let's come back to our test plan. And I'll be creating a test execution. So in fact here I have not 3 but I have 6 test cases because in fact there were some test cases that I have in that folder. But no worries, let's create our test execution. And in this case a test execution, what it is. So a test execution is like a task for running a bunch of test cases in some version of the system and in some revision. Okay. And it represents like one iteration. It's like a test cycle. So you can define, since this is an issue, you can define the signee. You can also specify the revision of the system under test. And here you can specify the test environment. So this is optional, but it's quite handy because sometimes you may want to track the results on a per environment basis. So imagine that you have this calculator that basically is implemented both for iOS and for Android, and that you wish to track the results on 2 different mobile devices. So you could write down different test cases for that, but instead of duplicating your work, you can basically reuse the same test cases, and whenever you schedule the execution, you can say in which environment they are going to be executed on. And later on, you can track the test results on a per environment basis, and you can also do the same for tracking the requirement coverage status. So let's create our test execution. So remember, test execution is like a cycle, it's like a task for running a bunch of test cases. So it contains in this case 6 test cases. It's linked to our test plan, so I'll call this a planned test execution. And then you have here the test cases. So I'll start the test cases. You can change the ranking of them just by dragging them around. And I will start by executing the manual test first, because I think this is the one that is most common. And for that, I can execute it like this. And now I'm going to be redirecting to the issue screen of our test run. So at the top, you can change the status of your test run to a given status. So in fact, Xray provides you the ability to find your own custom test run status. You can also leave a comment here, a global comment, or even create a defect or link to some existing defect, or add some evidences and link them globally. Or you can do this at step level. So moving a bit down into the actual execution details, you can see that, okay, this test is linked to this requirement. It does require this precondition, and then you have the steps. So the steps are ordered, although you can execute them out of order, and each step is comprised of 2 rows like the inputs and the outcomes of the step. So let's say, and if you have attachments, you can see that they are available here. So let's pass all the steps, and as soon as I do this, In fact, the overall execution status has changed to be executing. And let's say that whenever you press the equal sign, actually the calculator crashed. So it failed. Let's leave here a comment. It crashed. Okay. You can also attach here some evidence. All your actions, by the way, they are logged in this activity section. And well, either at this moment or later on, you may wish to create a defect or link this step with some existing defects. So let's create a defect saying, okay, calculator crash. It knows that it's affecting version 3 because our test plan and our test execution, they are aimed for version 3. And Xray has a nice feature that makes it possible to automatically fill out a table with all the steps until the step that failed, and this is quite interesting for reproducing the bug afterwards. So let's create the bug, and let me just show you a glance of what it looks like. So you can see here the description of our bug, and then Xray is also able to create links to either to the requirement issue, to the test issue, and also to the test execution, just to facilitate navigation between those issues. Okay, our manual test is run. Let's come back to our test execution. And remember that I spoke a bit about, since we are using issue types, you can take advantage of the workflow mechanism that Xray provides. So in fact, we are able to automatically transition this test execution, which represents like a task for running a bunch of test cases, to a given workflow status. So you know that someone started executing the first test case just by looking at it. Okay, let's execute the generic test first, and let's move it here. Just to be fast, you can see that I can pass it in line, so without going into the actual details. But also I could report results to this generic test also by using the REST API, or either by importing some automated test results from JUnit, NUnit, or Robot Framework, for example. One thing that I'm not mentioning, guys, is that you can do bulk operations, and this is quite handy. Sometimes you may want to do a bulk assign or bulk pass or bulk file a bunch of test cases. So here you can see that in fact you have the test execution assignee, which is like the person responsible for managing this test execution. But you also have an assignee for each individual run. So you can define, for example, okay, this specific run, I want it to be run not by administrator, but by, for example, by Andrea. Okay, so you have two levels of assignment here if you want. Okay, so let's execute our Cucumber automated test, and for this I will extract it from Jira. So let me just do here a bulk operation just to remove the three other test cases that they should not be here. Okay. And okay, they are not here. Okay, so now I can basically I can export this Cucumber test case out of Jira in order to run it in the CI environment. So how can I do that? Well, I can do it quite manually by using the UI. Well, that's actually what I'm going to do because I don't have time for more. But you can also use one of our free add-ons for Jenkins or Bamboo that basically will allow you to export the Cucumber specification based on, for example, on the issue key of a given test plan or a given test execution or a given requirement. Okay, and it will generate automatically a feature file, which is a Cucumber specification, which I will show you in a few moments. So let me just copy this into a sample project that I have here, which implements a calculator, and let me show you how the feature looks like. So whenever you export that specification from Jira that you are managing in Jira, Xray is able to automatically put here like some text that link that marks somehow our scenario with the requirement issue, with the test execution, with also the test issue. So whenever you run this in the CI side, the results will contain this text, so we know where to report these results to. So I'll go now into the shell mode, and I will be executing Cucumber. So I've copied this specification to a sample Ruby project that I have here. Although I'm running this by hand, of course this could be fully automated. So I just want to show how simple this is. So this has generated a JSON file, which I will now submit into the REST API of Jira by doing a post request, okay? So these steps, they can be fully automatic by using the Jenkins or the Bamboo add-ons. So if I now refresh our test execution, you should see it that I have now 2 tests passing and 1 failing, which is great, because if now I go into the actual execution details page, you can actually see here the detailed information even at step level for the automated results that you obtained in the CI side. So you have like the duration, even if you took some screenshots, they're going to be available here at step level in the execution screen. And you can also track the results for each different input values, or in this case of your scenario outline. Okay, so from this point of view, the test execution is done, and look at it, and Xray is able to automatically resolve it. So let's come to our test plan and see how it looks like. So our test plan that it currently has 6 test cases. Basically, the 3 ones that I have executed in that test execution, they are now being reflected within the test plan. So the consolidated results of that cycles, you can see that 2 tests are passing and 1 failing and 3 into do. So the latest status for these tests that I executed, in fact, you can see that it reflects the execution result that you have from that first test execution. Sometimes the guys might say, okay, I fixed the problem. So how can I create then a test execution in order just to validate the tests that are failing, for example, or even the tests that are currently to do? So this is as easy as creating a test execution with status. Then I pick the status that I want. Okay, so let's create a test execution for the tests that are currently failing, and this shall include only our manual test case, which I will now pass in line just to be quicker. So if I come back now to the test plan, what should you see there? Actually, you're going to see that our 3 test cases, they are now passed. And this is because the latest result for each one of them is passed. So if I drill down in our manual test case, you can see that it was executed twice, and that in the latest test execution, the result of our test case is passed, so that is why it's shown here as pass. Okay, I will now go into the integrations with Exporter before I go into actual reports, and I will take as an example our first iteration, our first test execution. So you're seeing this section. In this section, you can see in the test executions panel, you can see the 2 iterations that I made. So let's pick the first one where I have 2 tests passing and 1 failing. Sometimes you may need to hand over this information to some upper management or even to your own customers, or to take a snapshot in fully customized documents. And Exporter is the right add-on for that, because it provides you the ability to define templates in Word or Excel. Basically, it provides you the means to define some placeholders, and it will fill out those placeholders with the custom field, with the fields from the issues that you select. So what I'll be doing here, and since Exporter, of course, integrates with Xray, although it can be used for much more, I will be generating a report in Word containing the results of this iteration. So let's say that I want this in Word. And Exporter will generate a Word document containing all this information. So let's see how it looks then. Okay, here it is. And this is quite nice because you can basically define whatever layout you want. So Exporter then provides you the means, and you can even embed the attachments like the screenshots directly in your report. So although I've done this by hand, you can automate this, for example, in the transition of a workflow, or you can also schedule this, like, for example, to do it in this report like every single Monday, and then you can send the report to some email, or you can even attach it to some Confluence page. And this is basically Exporters just in 2 minutes, okay? So I will now speak a bit about the reports that Jira Xray provides by default, so you don't have to buy anything else. I would like just to show you a glance of the things that we have. Okay, so talking about reports, so I will start by the legacy ones, because there are some reports that basically they just list entities, like listing tests, and basically this is accessible here from this panel. You can list all the tests for a given project, and then what is interesting here is that you can analyze the latest results of these tests in some version, and this will take into account the executions that you made for that specific version and for that specific environment. You can do the same for test sets. So if you have, like, for example, some critical test set with like the security that groups the security or the performance related tests, you can easily see how those tests that belong to that test set are, and by looking at this test set project tab, and then by choosing the version that you want in it, you will calculate the status for that version. Then we have more simple listings for test execution, and this is basically listing of entities where you can have the columns that you want. For example, you can see the test executions and see their overall progress here, and also, for example, like the test execution defects. And you have the same for test plans, where you can see all the test plans that you have. So remember that you can have, for a given version of the system, you can create like one test plan with all the tests that you want to execute in that version, or you can create multiple test plans, for example, for tracking different tests, for example, one for regression testing and another one for the new feature related tests. Now more for the advanced reporting. Okay, and I'll start by this one, because I really like this one from the perspective of the thing that is being built. So the overall requirement coverage report shows you the current status of your requirements, either epics, user stories, or the typical requirements that you have configured in your project, and you can analyze them for some version. Okay, and here, in fact, I'm grouping them by component, and you're going to see that the requirements, they can be either okay, they can be not okay, not run, or recovered. And by looking at this, you know right away that, for example, you have here six requirements that are assigned to the core component that are okay. And for version 3, what this means is that the tests that you have related with those requirements, that you executed them in version 3 and that they all passed. And then you can drill down and see actually the completeness for each one of these requirements. So by looking at this overall picture here, you can take a decision on whether our risk is whether to make some release for the version that you are, for example, currently working on. You can also group this not by component, but for example by priority if it matters most for you. Then you can track this overall coverage on a daily basis, and well, this is, I would say that this is relevant here. It's connection problems. Okay, this view provides you like the status of your requirements on a daily basis, so you can see like the amount of requirements that are passing or that are okay, and you can see this trend over time. Okay, this can be also quite handy, so you can see if you are having like regressions or not. So the typical traceability report, and well, this is quite common. So you can list all the requirements that you want. You can see the related tests, all the runs that you made for those tests, the results that you obtain in each run, and the defects that you obtain in the context of each run. And if you want to analyze a certain group of requirements, taking into account the executions that you made for another version, like for version 2, this is as simply as that, because you just pick your version 2, you can see that the picture for version 2 is actually different. So this requirement for version 2 is actually not run, because in fact you have not scheduled any execution for it. Then we have more metric-oriented reports, and well, they are quite similar. The first one is a test plan report, which provides some aggregated values like the amount of tests that are currently in some status. You can also see them grouped by type. You can also track the progress and the success rate. And you can also see the amount of linked defects that are either in an open or closed state. So here, if you are using test environments, this is quite handy because you can track the success rate on a per environment basis. We have a similar thing for test executions. So you can see all the test executions given some filter that you specify here. You can also see the amount of tests by their status, by type. You can see the progress, so you can see if all the tests have been run or not. And you can see the success rate. So here the success rate means all the percentages of tests that pass. And then you can see the linked defects that were obtained from the executing those tests that are part of that specific test execution. So all these 3 reports, including the one that I'm showing to you, they can easily be exported to CSV, and this comes with Xray, so you don't have to buy anything else. So the test runs report is just a feature, quite handy report for listing, for example, like all the runs that are assigned to me, or that have been executed by me, or the ones that fail or that pass, that are assigned to some specific component. Okay, so I'm a bit pressure on time. I just want to speak a bit about the Agile board. So guys, if you are using Scrum, I hope you really are using an Agile approach to your development process. So if you are using Scrum, so you know these kind of boards where you can track the status of your issues like that. They are quite nice, but here actually you are lacking the actual feedback from the testing part. And with Xray, you can embed the actual feedback on your existing boards, because you can include some custom fields like the requirement status that provide you real-time information, taking into account the executions that you made for that specific, for the test that validate that specific requirement. So by looking at here, for example, you know, okay, someone moved this to the done column, but actually you see that you have some requirement, some problems with the tests that validate this requirement in version 3.0. What is also nice is that also the plan and also the executions, they can be included in the board, and you can track the progress of them by including specific custom fields here. This is quite nice because, well, basically you are bringing the QA into the actual development process. So everyone that is working in the context of the sprint, developers, testers, or even managers, they can have a clear understanding of what is passing in the current sprint just by looking at it. So you don't need to go to any additional reports for that. So besides it, Xray provides dashboards, I would say like six dashboards, 6 gadgets that you can use in dashboards. So you can track the overall requirement coverage and also the trend there. You can also track an evolution of your of the testing of a certain amount of tests. You can also see like the amount of runs grouped by by priority, by label, or even by assignee. You can also see it on a tabular way. You can make a listing of your requirements. You can make a listing of all the test cases and present the result for some version, and that will take into account the last execution that you have obtained for that version. You can also include the test executions and the test sets and the test plans, and include this, for example, these specific custom fields here. If you want to make some listing of these entities, which you can not just include in the dashboard, but you can actually include this in some Confluence page. Okay, besides this, and for guys that really want to make highly customized reports with drill-down capabilities, we provide integration with EasyBI, which is an add-on, which is not ours, it's from a different vendor. So they are really nice guys, and they provide you a BI-like tool that allow you to drill down on the data. So you can define like the dimensions and the measures and build out the reports with whatever information you want. So that you can build out reports in a graphical way or in a tabular way. So this is a different kind of reporting if you compare it with the exporter, which is more for generating reporting Word or in Excel. Finally, to close up, I know, João, we are pressured, and I just want to mention that we also have integration with Structure, so you can see our entities there, like the test executions, the test sets, and you can see the tests underneath each one of them, and you can also manage the relations between tests and these entities. You can also see the tests that are linked to a given user story, so this is quite easy to set up. And finally, I would like just to finalize with saying that Xray provides you many different ways, many capabilities, I would say, in a better way, for integrating in many different automation frameworks. So if you have some automated tests implemented in JUnit, any unit, Robot, Behave, Calabash, so you can just come here into our documentation and see how easy, because they are is to integrate with Xray. So we have many different tutorials. So basically you have different endpoints that you can use in order to submit these results. Okay, and also one thing that is relevant is that, as I mentioned, we provide add-ons for Bamboo. They are free for Jenkins, also for Maven, and we provide a full REST API. It comes with a product, so you don't have to install or pay anything else for it, that you can use as a means to extract or even to import information to Xray. Okay, so let me see. I think I covered most of it. So we are a bit tight on time. João.
Very good. Thank you, Sergio. I'm really sorry, like we mentioned, we had problems with audio. We are, completely out of our time, but I just want to go through some specific links very fast because we still have the questions to be answered. So as usual, as Sergio was just showing, the documentation is like a really important point. So pretty much everything that Sergio mentioned here, you can find it in the documentation with more detail and with more precise information. Of course, our website and our blog are the go-to point if you want to watch some tutorials, some tips regarding our tools, also the latest news, and you can do it the same with Twitter. So we try to keep it updated. Our Twitter account, so just follow us on Twitter, you get the latest news regarding our tools there. So in our YouTube channel, you can find that there, and we'll post more specific videos, not just related with Xray, but also related to Exporter, and of course this test management part. So we'll try to keep it up to date with these webinars that will be posted there as well. You can see already a version there, but we'll try to have this one as well. And if you're not able to install Xray trial, as you probably know already, Xray is completely free for the trial license, so you have 30 days to test it. If you're not able to do it in your own instance, you can use our own sandbox and try and have the first add-ons with Xray. So, and with this said, very fast, we have I would say 30 seconds or 20 seconds to write up some questions. We already have some to answer. But in any case, if you probably won't be for sure we won't be able to answer all of them. We will send you afterwards an email with the answer. So 20 seconds for you to write up some questions. We'll for sure try to answer at least 1, 2, 3. We'll see how we manage. So 20 seconds, guys. Okay, so Sergio, we do have some questions.
Okay, let me start with the first one. So there is a question concerning documentation for NUnit, JUnit for automated testing, so how to get there. So whenever you install the add-on, you got this documentation page, and then you can come here into the automation section of our documentation, then into integration with testing frameworks, and here you can see plenty of tutorials for like NUnit, JUnit. So it's just a matter of coming here and have a look at it. So there's another question about the auto-completion, when all the auto-completion for, I think it's related with Cucumber. So we really aim to address that I would say soon this year, because we are going to have like a step library, and we want to reuse that step library not just for gherkin but also for manual testing, and I would say it should happen in our next releases.
Also, our chronic question: when is the cloud available? Yes, it's a chronic question because it comes up every webinar.
Yeah. So to answer that, so we are currently working on just on the infrastructures. We have closed the features part of the add-on for the cloud. So I would estimate that that should happen during this semester, and that will to be soon. Okay. And there's also, let me see if I can get here another question. So there is an importer. I know there is an ALM importer which helps in importing test cases from ALM. Is there any add-on to import test cases from other management tools like QA Complete? What is the best way to doing that for doing that? Well, Xray provides you a built-in test case importer that is, which it makes it possible for you. So let me just open this quickly. Which allows you to import information by using a CSV file. So as long as you are able to build out a CSV file, then you can just submit it here, and you follow like a wizard for mapping the columns of the CSV to the fields of the test cases in Jira. So if you want to have a look at it afterwards, you can come to our user guide, advanced usage, and then importing manual test cases using test case importer. You can also use the REST API if you want, but this is like the easy way to achieve that.
So there is also a question regarding how to map the user stories with the defects, and the answer was actually answered during the webinar. You have the traceability report, which actually gives you all the overview of what is your requirement in terms of tests, and also the links, also all the effects linked to that specific requirement, and you can see it in that specific report, traceability report. It's all there. So just if you want to show it, Sergio, just once again. So in here you have all the information, not just from the user story, the tests that are there, and also the runs, and the last column, the defects. So all the traceability is done in this report. Okay, and we are already 10 minutes ahead from our time. We still have some questions.
I would like just to answer the final one, because I think this is maybe quite relevant for all you guys. So Xray 3.0. So we're going to have a webinar for that, I'll say next week as well.
It's next week, yes.
So if you guys come here into our webinar section, you can just go there and register for the next for the 3.0 webinar. And what I would like just to mention here, because the one question is related about the difference between the test repository and also the test plan board. So the test repository, and I explained this in more detail in the 3.0 webinar, is a project level organization. So here you organize the tests at the project level. So this is nothing in no way related with the execution or the planning related aspect. On the other hand, the test plan board represents you the organization that you want to do at each test plan. So imagine that you have some user that actually wants to organize the test in a different way because he wants to change the priorities, he wants to group the test in a different way. So at the test plan, at each test plan, you can organize the tests in a different way, in the distant way than the one that you made for the test repository. So, and this gives you way more flexibility because you can have you can manage like the intended organization that you want, the basis for your project within the test repository itself. And the test repository only contains test issues from some project. And at the test plan board, you can organize the tests having in mind the execution related aspect. So you can create a test plan and you can change the ranking of the tests in a different way. You can group the tests in a different way than you have than the one that you have in the test repository. So there was, and this is really the last one because this was really a bit of my fault, because whenever I created a test plan, so there's a question why there were like 6 test cases. Well, I picked this folder. You can see in fact that the folder contains 3 test cases, but in fact within this folder there's another additional folder there. So there were already some 3 test cases there within the arithmetic related tests. So that is why whenever I created the test plan from this folder, it contained 6 test cases and not the 3 ones that I created initially. Okay.
So just to make it clean and short, test repositories is for you to manage your tests and organize your tests. Test plan repositories for you to manage. Test plan boards are for you to manage all the test plans and all the execution aspects. So all the executions that come from the test itself. Okay, so we are good to go. I think we covered pretty much it. Once again, we are really sorry for the problems we had. Actually, this is our, like, I don't know, 20th, 15th, or I don't know how many webinars already did. First time that we had such problem. We'll make it sure that it doesn't happen again. Once again, we are really sorry. In any case, I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was a clear webinar, even with this. And I hope to see you once again in the next webinar. Don't forget, next week, the 3.0 webinar, just go in there. If it's still available for registration, I don't know. I think it's completely full at the moment. But in any case, we'll do it for more in the future. And for sure, we'll share with you the recording of all of this. Okay? Have a good one. Have a good day. Have a happy testing, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.